Dear students, Assalamu alaikum to all of you. The topic for today is Sino-Indian relations. This topic is meant for the students of political science of class 12th. This topic is from paper B, chapter number 13, Sino-Indian relations. As you know that India and China are two neighboring countries during ancient period and even the medieval period, and up to the 19th century, the relations between the two countries were good. Mahatma Gautam Buddha preached Buddhism in India, and it separated outside India. Buddhism reached to China, Korea, Japan, and Sri Lanka. You may have heard that many Chinese pilgrims visited India, and they had given a detailed account of India, throwing light on the Indian rulers, Indian social life, cultural and religious life. You may have heard about Fahian, Chinese pilgrim, and Han Sang, who visited India, and they have given a detailed account of India. But here we will discuss the India-Chinese relations immediately after both the countries were freed from the Western domination. As you know that India became free from the clutches of the British on 15th August 1947. On the other hand, China was not directly controlled by the Western powers as India, rather it was divided into various spheres of influence and its resources were looted or exploited. And that is known as the cutting of the Chinese watermelon. Later on, the Chinese struggled and finally they united China, and after the successful revolution of 1949, Chinese were free from the Western domination. Today, we will discuss the Chinese-India relations from the day both became free from Western domination and till date. The People's Republic of China that came into being in 1949 after the successful Communist Revolution. It is a neighboring country of India, and India was one of the few states to recognize People's Republic of China. Nehru, the then Prime Minister of India, failed to help this new neighbor government. However, the then Home Minister of India, Sardar Patel, he had apprehension of Chinese aggression in future. However, Nehru could not perceive this threat. As a result, the India-Chinese border was guarded by Indian paramilitary forces and not by the army. In 1954, the Indian Prime Minister Pandit Nehru signed an agreement with Chinese Premier known as Panchsheel Agreement, which is based on 5 principles, and in which there is a mention of respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of each other's country, non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries, and peaceful coexistence. But we have seen that there were ups and downs in the relations between the two countries. For some time there was quite respite and situation was normal, but there were some disputes that led to border skirmishes, that led to standoff between the two countries, and that led to a war between the two countries in 1962. There were certain problems that causes deadlock or strain the relations between the two countries, and today inshallah we will discuss these problems that put hindrances in normalizing the relations between the two countries. Number one, Tibet problem. Tibet touches the Indian borders in the north. You may be knowing that Dalai Lama was a spiritual and political head of Tibet. The Britishers had stationed an Indian mission in Tibet. Even China had stationed its troops in Tibet. China made attempts to regulate Tibet's foreign affairs. When the Second World War was over, China was unable to gain access to Tibet. However, as revolution broke out, as civil war broke out in China, the fate of Tibet was in confusion. India wanted Tibet to be an autonomous region, a buffer state between India and China. In 1949, People's Republic of China asked Chinese mission of the erstwhile Chinese government to vacate Tibet. China laid claims over Tibet and India recognized Chinese claim over Tibet because India was not in a position to prevent the China from doing so. People's Republic of China, however, assured Indians that they will settle the dispute with Tibet through negotiations and not military action. However, China took over Tibet militarily, though they assured India about solution through peaceful negotiations. Dalai Lama sought India's assistance in Tibet-China negotiations. In 1950, India came to know that China launched a full-scale invasion of Tibet. India protested, but China did not pay attention to it. China refused to accept Tibet's autonomy, and in 1951, Dalai Lama was forced to sign a peace agreement with China, and he signed a peace agreement and accepted Chinese sovereignty over Tibet with limited autonomy of Tibet in certain matters. Chinese also promised religious freedom and cooperation in development. But despite India's soft attitude, there were problems in Tibet because of the brutalities and cruelties by Chinese on Tibetans. They protested. Though full respect was given to Dalai Lama, after the brutalities in Tibet, he, along with others, ran from Tibet and sought political asylum in India. Though India accepted or recognized Tibet as a part of China, but it gave asylum to Dalai Lama, and this was considered as an enemy act by China and charged India as expansionist. India lost its legitimate interest in Tibet, and Nehru was criticized for this soft attitude, for losing legitimate interests in Tibet. But the Indian Prime Minister realized that we are not in a position, or we do not have a military might to flush out Chinese from the Tibet or to prevent Chinese aggression. Number 2, border dispute. China now started infiltrating into India's territory. China claimed certain portions of India as Chinese. In 1954, Chinese maps showed certain large areas of India as Chinese. Later on, Chinese promised to revise the map, but unfortunately, they again violated the principles of Panchsheel, and they set up a camp at Barahoti and violated Indian territory several times through the Shimla Pass. The border dispute is related to McMahon Line, the northeast, and Ladakh in northwest. McMahon Line, it is a boundary line between India and China. Just we have a red cliff line as a boundary line demarcated between India and Pakistan, and we have Durand line as boundary line between Pakistan and Afghanistan. In the same way, McMahon line is a boundary line between India and China that demarcates the two countries. This McMahon line was drawn by the British representations that divide China and Tibet, but the Indians respected this McMahon line, but Chinese violated it several times. Now, Ladakh. Ladakh is a part of Jammu and Kashmir. Aksai Chin is also a part of Ladakh. It means it's also a part of Jammu and Kashmir. All revenue records prove this. Then origin of dispute. A road was built by Chinese in Aksai Chin during 56 and 7. The road was meant to open, or the road was built to open western Tibet for the Chinese immigrants. When Chinese Prime Minister visited India in 1954, he promised Indians to respect the McMahon line. Soon, in 1959, China laid claims over thousands of square miles of Indian territory as Chinese, and they declared McMahon line as illegal. Finally, a road was constructed near Aksai Chin. In July 59, Chinese troops camped Khormukh fort in Ladakh. There they arrested an Indian patrol party in Aksai Chin. India made a proposal for peace, but Chinese refused and claimed 50,000 square miles of Indian territory to be Chinese. Their patrol party also entered Indian border at Kinzam in Nifa Valley, which is in Arunachal Pradesh side. Nifa Valley is now called Arunachal Pradesh. India had no option but to build 50 posts along the Sino-India border. Then lastly, we have China-India War of 1962. As there were already border skirmishes between the two countries, especially by China, finally this led to a full-fledged war between China and India in 1962. Chinese troops crossed McMahon line in the Nifa Valley now we call it as Arunachal Pradesh, on September 8, 1962, and occupied a huge part of Indian territory. Nehru, forced by the circumstances, called the Indian army to repulse the Chinese troops, but the attack launched by Chinese was so massive that Indians could not stand before it. The attack was so massive that it appeared that low castes had unleashed its fury on Indian borders. India suffered many casualties, and the Chinese were inside the McMahon, about 16 miles inside the Indian territory, emanated to the plains of the Assam, and they occupied also the whole of Ladakh, which they claimed to be their part. India suffered humiliation and casualties because India suffered a defeat. Britain and USA rushed to military help for India, whereas USSR remained neutral. China asked India to respect the line of control within 20 kilometers of McMahon line, but India wanted to maintain status quo. Negotiations were on, but India suffered humiliation. This was a great setback for the Nehru's policy of China, and it was also a setback for the Indian military. India's image was tainted both at home and at the international level. In Nehru's close associate and the Defence Minister of India, the then Defence Minister of India, K.V. Krishnan, had resigned. Many army officers were asked to resign or to retire. India suffered humiliation, and this has, for the first time, no confidence motion was moved. It was tabled in the Lok Sabha, and it has also effect on the opposition. This was a period of national humiliation for India because Indians could not stand before China and they could not occupy their lost lands. It has also affected the Sino-India rift had also effect on our opposition parties, and Sino-USSR differences also led to irreconcilable differences in our political parties. Communist Party of India, which was pro-USSR, moved closer to Congress, whereas Communist Party of Marxist, which was a pro-Chinese, went away from Congress, and during the China-India war, many Marxist leaders were arrested. After the defeat, Indians felt how to maintain the national integrity. This northwestern region and especially Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, this was undeveloped and isolated, so attention was paid to start the political process and to maintain the national integrity. Nagaland was granted statehood. Similarly, Tripura and Manipur were also given the right to elect their representatives to the assemblies. And today we also see there is face-off or stand-off between the two countries where, as I'm talking of the prevailing situation, we see there are border skirmishes, there are clashes between Indian and Chinese troops in the Galaman Valley of Ladakh. There, for some time there has been quite respite, and again there are clashes and tension between the two countries, as China lays claim over Arunachal Pradesh and Ladakh to be its part, and this is causing tension or strain in the relations between the two countries. Dear students, I think it is enough for today. Thanks. Stay home, stay safe.